Welcome to the Aerospace Executive Podcast, featuring in-depth conversations with executives, leaders, influencers, and journalists in this dynamic, high-stakes industry. Hosted by Craig Picken, founder of North Star Group, the boutique executive search firm for the aerospace industry. You'll learn how top aerospace executives are developing their people, competing for talent, overcoming challenges, and adjusting to industry trends to drive growth and profits. And now, let's join your host, Craig Picken.
So, hey, welcome back to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. I'm thrilled to have Michael Alan Tate with me. Michael is the CEO of Same Page Consulting. He is an author, just wrote a great book called The White Shirt. Find your peaceful life and giving career at any stage. In fact, I read it twice, and I passed it on to someone I know well who can use it. It's if anybody's thinking about a career change or just trying to figure out where to go next in life, it's great to pick up. Mike works with a host of companies and people and helps them define their career and define their succession plans and many other things. So, Mike, thanks for coming on today. Thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Craig. I really appreciate being here.
We talk about, look, everybody, and today it's really, it's I talk to people all day long, and they're always asking me, where do I go?
Yeah.
And my answer to them is, well, where do you want? Yeah, I kind of just throw it back to them and say, where do you want to go?
Right.
What do you think? And I'm not sure that's the best. I'm not sure that's the best question for them.
Yeah.
So, what are the challenges? Talk about the challenges they face and
sure
how to overcome them when either life gets in the way or a career change is needed.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Craig, there's one of my favorite quotes is from Alfred E. Newman of Mad Magazine, who said, most people don't know what they want, but they're pretty sure they don't have it. And that's where most of us are. And but facing a career change and really knowing what you want, because people do say, you say, what do you want? They say, I really don't know. I just want something different. So in the book, and with anybody I work with, there's kind of three questions you have to answer in this order. And the first is, who am I? Like, what are my skills and interests and abilities? And then what is my place in the world? And what's your next move and where that place is? And the last question is, how do I find it? And most people start with, how do I find it first? They start putting resumes out and sending them out and wondering why they're getting disappointed and frustrated and depressed. It's simply because they've chosen the worst way to find a job. And I talk about the best way to find it, which is actually putting together a career plan, a one-page plan, and sharing it with people and asking for their advice. A little bit different twist on networking.
Yeah. So. And that's that's actually a great, great way to start. It's interesting you say that. As I was telling you before we hit record here, a young student I mentor over in North Carolina, Wilmington, he was kind of in the same boat. He said, I want to be in construction, or I think I want to be in construction.
Right.
And so he started reaching out to some of the general contractors locally and saying, hey, tell me about what you do. How did you get there?
Right.
And sure enough, one of them was impressed. They hired him.
Yeah.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of the essence of my work in the book too is ask for a job and you'll get advice. Ask for advice and you'll find a career. And he proved it by what he did. And just having that kind of approach is really the key to life, even if you're with a company. Because years ago I was working with a large consulting firm, and I got real frustrated and. I was there for 4 or 5 years, and I was working with all these consultants, kind of managing lots of big projects. I didn't like doing that. So I wrote a plan about what I wanted, kind of what I do now, and I wrote a plan about this is the kind of place I want to work and what I'll be doing. And I didn't even share it with anyone except a buddy of mine who was outside the company. But within 3 months, the whole organization shifted, and they created that position that I had written down on my paper. And so I hear a lot of people who say, I just want to leave and I need to go somewhere else. But sometimes the place you're working is the right fit for you. You just haven't really getting clear on what you want, no matter where you are. What are the elements of that world that's going to make you feel most alive? And so that's kind of the key to all this, is getting really intentional about what you want. And, a plan is an amazing thing. And writing that down, it's like if you're going to start a business, would you start with a brochure or would you start with a plan? I think the plan might be a good way to start. So, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, hey, look, when people are asking me, a lot of transitioning military officers call me.
Yeah.
I'm always happy to have the chat. Young students, and they're like, where should I go or what should I do? And, like I said, I don't know if my answer is the right one, but, the one thing I always challenge them to do is say, hey, look, if you were to take a step back and say, what's kind of my dream job? I mean, I want to be a CEO or I want to be a program manager or whatever else. What would the thing that you think would be really cool in life? What's the thing you think would be really cool in life?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a good start.
It is. And I think it's a great place. And a lot of people have that in them. They just never been asked the question, and you did. And that's, the right question will get you usually in the right direction. But sometimes they don't, they still get stuck. And I have people do if you read the book, a family career tree, which is drawing out all the careers in your family, because we have kind of a career DNA that's in us from some of our past. I believe that's true. We never get over our parents. Our parents affect our career more than anything. But our parents and our peers, one of the worst things, so that family career tree, I used it a lot. I worked with a lot of kids in college who were trying to figure that stuff out, and I'd have them do it. And I worked with this guy who was 65, and he was retiring, and he was in a nonprofit, and he didn't know what to do. And so we did his tree, and we found out there were 5 or 6 people that were in banking in his background. So now he's taking his public relations experience. Now he's a public relations guy in a bank, but he had never really thought about it. It's just sometimes, as the old saying goes, the ox you're looking for, you're sitting right on top of. So that whole idea of just sketching out, all of a sudden you'll see a connection, and it sometimes leads somewhere. So anyway.
So say someone's sitting in their cube and they're bored and they're looking outside saying, I want something different. I just wish I know what it was.
Right.
How do they start to put that plan together? What's the first couple steps?
Yeah. The first step is, I would say, do the family career tree first. I mean, that may sound silly, but it's pretty amazing what it opens up, just to give you some ideas of possibilities you have never really thought about. That'd be the first thing I'd say to do. The second would be to, write down a list of the skills that you love, the things you love to do. That if you had time on your hands, would you be writing? Would you be building? Would you be speaking? If you were just sitting there by yourself, you could use your time anyway. What were those things you'd love to do? And then what are your values? If you go on my website, I have this exercise called a career values exercise. And knowing what you really value in a career is important. There's like 50 or 60 things to choose from there to come up to say, in a career, what is it that I value in my career? Is it stability? Is it adventure? Is it risk? What are those things that make me alive? And then and then the second thing I would tell someone to do is just write down the topics that they're interested in. It's like when you turn in the newspaper, not on a newspaper anymore, but you're going online and looking at things. What are you reading about? Those, because interests tell us industries. Like, you obviously love the aerospace industry, that kind of language. And people often ask me, should I follow my heart when I'm looking for my career? And I'd say, no, follow your ears. The language you love to be around, that gives you energy to be around it. And so just thinking about what those languages I like being around, that kind of tells you the industry, and then your skills tells you the kind of position you might have. And then the next step after you do that is to create a plan, whether you're going anywhere or not, that says, here's my here's geographically where I'd like to live. Here's the type of organization I like to work in, size-wise. Here's the culture of that organization. What would it look like? Then list down the problems you like to solve. The other side of the plan on a little paper, do some research and find 5 or 6 companies that fit where a place you might like to work. Do some research and take that piece of paper and go share it with 3 or 4 people that you know and ask them what they think about your plan. And that will get you going one way or the other. It'll get you going forward, because what happens so many times, people, they have these ideas, but they don't take a bold step. That's, once you have a plan or a semblance of a sketched out plan, you can go to my website and see all kinds of samples of plans. But just taking a step, momentum is a wonderful thing. And once you take a step, then providence sets in and things start to happen. So have a plan in your hand. And I actually worked with a guy one time, years ago, I think I told you, Craig, I used to work in corporate outplacement. And I worked with some CEOs and VPs that were let go during those times. And I had a guy who wrote down, he all he carried with him in his job search was an index card with a list of 5 companies he wanted to work for in his pocket. And he would sit down and people, they say, what do you do? He said, well, I'm looking, and here, you probably don't know anybody that's hiring. You probably don't know any but jobs out there, but here's some companies I've been thinking about. And he was sitting at a tire, he was getting his tires done, repaired or something one day, and he was sitting there, and a lady was sitting next to him, and they had started a conversation. She says, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm looking, and he pulls the card out, and guess what? She said, oh, my husband's the CEO of that company. He had a job in 2 weeks. So, it's all, wow. A job search, the more informal your job search, the quicker it happens. The more formal it is, the longer it takes. There is no job hunting system out there. It's all a mirage. There's not a, Indeed, put your resume on Indeed and go to sleep and wake up with 5 job offers the next morning. I don't think so. So,
yeah. Look, I hear it. Yeah, we've all heard the horror stories of people.
Yeah.
I've sent out 500 resumes and haven't gotten one response. And, look, I get blind. Nothing scares me worse than a blind resume from out of the blue. Somebody, I'm just, I'm out looking for a job.
Right.
Can you help me? I'm like, well, probably not. Maybe, I don't know. Right. Who are you? Those scare me the worst. But when someone comes up and says, "Hey, I'm looking for something that looks like this.
Yeah.
Here's my background and my skills. Can you help me? Yeah, maybe. We're getting warmer.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I can guide you to somebody. If it's not me, I can guide you to somebody who's probably a little closer to the target. But,
just step that way. Yeah.
So you were in career outplacement. Mm-hmm. And you've seen a lot of people who've gotten laid off, people who've gotten fired. Mm-hmm. When should people be focusing on a career transition? Be it to the next step, next company. Yeah, I'm a big believer in always be having conversations and networking, because you never know. You never know what's out there.
Yeah.
And you never know what's going to happen to your company.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, just one decision in a boardroom, your company can be gone. So, I look back at my life, and I tend to change even in my career of what I'm doing now. About every 4 to 5 years, I make a pretty major shift in the work I do. And I think we all have a rhythm in us of when I call it the doom loop. You start a career, and I use these 4 quadrants, and you got quadrant 1 on the left-hand side. You're excited about your career. Quadrant 2, you're satisfied. Quadrant 3, you start to get bored. And quadrant 4 is when you're, we know the last words of a dying career. I've always done it that way. You kind of retired, but you forgot to leave. All people go through that loop. And there's a time when you get this sense in you that you need to make a move. And it'll usually be 2 or 3 years into a new position or new career where you need to start thinking about how am I going to shift to get a little more satisfaction or more excitement or whatever that, but just know you're going to feel that way. But I say every 2 to 3 years, I tell everyone they should go out and interview at least once every couple of years just to do that. Just to have an interview, see what the job market looks like and that sort of thing. But, you asked me too around all that, what's one of the other things that people do that keep them from moving to another job, because we know 85% of the people say they'd like to move out of their jobs, is because they try to do it alone. In my little book I wrote, it's the only career book ever written to be done, actually worked with a friend. And because there's nothing as lonely as going in a job search and getting, or looking, hearing no several times and having nobody there to pick you up. As Ecclesiastes said, if two are better than one, because if one falls down, there'll be someone there to pick you up. So find a friend because 85% of the people up there are dissatisfied with their jobs out in the world. I think you can find someone who might be in the same boat as you and just, and get something, it's not my book. I mean, there's lots of good books out there, but get a career book and go through it together. And that is the most important thing of anything I do, is getting people together to help each other through during making these decisions and getting advice and kind of staying on track. It is. That's simple, but.
I got a note from a guy the other day. He'd been laid off. He just got laid off. It's a Gulfstream aircraft. Company took out a whole layer of people. I mean, they just took out a whole layer of people. And this guy had been in his job for 27 years. Yeah. He made, and he'd been with the company 27 years, and he kind of been at that, manager level. Yeah. And his quote to me was, "I'd been thinking about looking for a new job in the next 18 to 24 months, but this is just a catalyst." Now it's it's more than a catalyst. It's kind of like, hey, but maybe it's just my own. It sounds like you and I are a little bit geared alike. I'm always, thinking about what's next, and maybe that's to my detriment. But I go a year or two, and I'm like, all right, how do I take this thing one more level? What's the next best thing? What do I do? What do I do different and better to make it exciting? Yeah. I suspect if you're saying, the next 18 to 24, I'm going to find a new job, why aren't you just doing it now? Right.
Yeah. Go ahead and take because that's what I have. People say, I'm going to move in a couple of years. And I went, so what, if somebody, if somebody put a gun to your head and you had to find a job in 6 months, what would you be doing right now? But just staying out there talking with people and, but having, instead of, there's a lot of networking that goes on, and someone comes in to see me, and I'm like, you'll say, so what are you looking for? That they don't really know. Now, I'm a career counselor, so I could help them, but most people you go see aren't career counselors. And if you go to them and say, I'm not really sure what I want, they're looking at you like, I'm not a career counselor, give me some help. So that's why just having jotted down even a list of organizations you might like to work with, and just say, I'm going to be changing. So if you're in a job right now, I'd put together a list for those things I would never send a resume out, a list of companies, a list of the things you enjoy doing, and just go out and share it with people and say, I'm going to change jobs probably in a couple of years. Would you look at my plan here and tell me what you think? And, and because we know that you and I both know that 80% of the jobs are never posted. They're filled. Right. They're filled through this network of people that and most of them aren't even jobs that exist. I just work with a guy who's 66 years old. He lost his company, and he's kind of having to start over. And he went out he's a CPA, trying to find a job with some firms and other places around, sending resumes, going to LinkedIn, went to some recruiters, couldn't find anything. I kept saying, the job you're looking for is not there. There's just a problem out there. And if you walk in and talk to enough people and you have a solution on this piece of paper, you're going to find a job. It took him, and last week he called and said, you'll never believe it. A friend of mine told me to go see this guy in this CPA firm, and I went and talked to him. They don't have any openings, but there's one guy's going to be retiring in a couple of years, so they're going ahead and bring me in to get ready for his retirement. So, it's all those thinking that there's a job hunting system is the mistake most people make, and I did myself years ago. I assumed that I could put my resume out and it would find the job, but just assuming there's not a job. And the way it works is at every company, there's a table, and every week management sits around that table and they look on the wall and they say, here's a problem we have. Here's an opportunity we have. Does anybody know somebody that could help us with that? That's what happens every week. And they say, we don't want to get HR involved. That'll take us forever. Anybody know anybody? And so there's one little guy with my plan who's been sharing his plan, and somebody will say, well, this guy came to see me, he had a plan, didn't he have a resume? I think we want to look at a guy who carries a plan around with him. So,
right.
Yeah. So anyway, that's, people who don't know business don't realize that decisions for hiring aren't made in the HR department. And so.
No, absolutely not. I mean, in fact, a hiring manager gives his issue, outsources his problem to HR.
Right.
It's just one more thing on their plate.
Yep.
And any executive who thinks HR is going to give him 100% of their time and resources to fill the position that's going to help him get his bonus, but not help them get theirs, has got rocks on their head. I mean, it's your team. It's your team.
Yeah.
Always be recruiting. I mean, always be having conversations.
Sure. Yeah. So everything's simple, but it's not easy, and it's hard to do. It's hard to get moving for all of us. And there's a little book called the 5-second rule, and it's not about when you drop food on the ground, you have 5 seconds to pick it up. Mm-hmm. It's about a way to get going, a way to get motivated. I referenced it in my book, and it's and being in aerospace, this would mean something to you. The author of the book had written that she had been clinically depressed for years and couldn't get going and had lost her job and everything. And she was walking by the television one night, and she saw a rocket taking off, and she heard the countdown. She walked in and they said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And she said, that's what I need to do tomorrow morning. So the next day, her long story short, it's already too late, but the alarm went off, and instead of hitting the snooze button, she counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, and she took a physical step. And taking just that counting down and taking a physical step will create momentum and get you moving on almost anything. But I would tell anybody who's having a hard time kind of getting going with their job search, 5-second rule. There's a YouTube on it. There's all kind of stuff out there, but it's a really practical way that actually works to help people get moving on their career exploration next step. So,
you work with a lot of executives inside companies as well. And how are you telling them to, look, they don't have any openings right now. They don't have any positions, but look, you don't know who's quitting tomorrow. You don't know who's, getting hit by a bus tomorrow.
Yep.
How are you telling them to always be recruiting?
I mean, there's a huge skill shortage out there too. And it's a big deal of hiring the right people. So I just, I tell them to always be, going to networking meetings, they find most of the candidates at the professional association meetings, attend all those. That's where you really find the people. And just, reach out to your friends and ask them for the people they know rather than, I know you're a recruiter and recruiting works for a lot of folks, but I just think it's just keeping your network active all the time, because you yourself, as you're saying, these executive jobs may not be there either. So,
yeah, no, look, I'm always the solution of the last resort.
Yeah.
You call me up when your other activities have failed to produce, that which you need.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm like, my opinion is to a VP caliber, an executive VP or a president. It's like, hey, look, it's your team. The pro basketball is always recruiting. They're always looking out for the next young star coming up. They're always looking at who's going to fill in the gaps should somebody get injured. And I think well-oiled companies do the same thing. They're work training and they're bringing up their talent, and it's a never-ending process.
Yeah, it is, and it's good to recruit from inside if you can, but sometimes it's good to bring in outside blood. But if you have somebody that looks good, don't worry about a position. If you've got talent, of course, I'm in Alabama. I told you that I live in Birmingham, so we don't have the best football team this year, but we have a pretty good coach, and I think he's recruiting most all the time, whether he has a position open or not, for good players. So my deal is look for good players, no matter if they have the skill set right now or not, because it's the potential you hire, not the person. And people. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what are you talk about a little bit in your book and on your website, 6 questions to ask yourself to get started on a successful career path.
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody, they start to look inward, and, what should they be asking themselves when they're ready to start? If they're ready to make a change, if they're just, at that life's junction, what's the inward conversation they need to be having in their head?
Yeah. The first one would be the real question about what the question is. Who am I? What are my skills and values? And just take some time to think about that. It's not something you can do in a day or two, but I'd say take a Saturday and just go and get something that gives you a structured way of saying, if I look at the 4 or 5 things I've accomplished in the past year, what were those skills and abilities that I just did like I was breathing? It was just so easy for me. Write that down, and then think about what you love to be around and what the languages and the interest and all, and sketch out something there, and just think about, if I could work for any company and organization, what would it be, and why would I want to work for that? Because and then take all that and just put it into something real simple that you can share with people. And sometimes you don't even need to share it with them. Once you get it clear in your mind, your vision clear, then, God or providence or whatever you call it steps in for the guy that's, got a plan and a prayer, and don't work alone, and just go out there and ask people for advice. But if you're never asked about a job opening, that's the main key to doing job search. Is people know you're looking for work, but they're never asked, do you know somebody that's hiring? Do you know anybody got an opening? Because when you do that, the next time you see them, you ask them to do something that's impossible to find you a job, and they feel bad, and they see you the next time, they feel embarrassed. They don't really want to talk with you. But if you'll just ask for advice, then people really seldom get asked for advice anymore. So just ask them what they think about your plan, and that's the simplest and quickest way to find your next career, is have a plan, because people will adjust your plan for you, but they can't adjust something that doesn't exist. So that's my big thing, is have a real short little summary of what you'd like to have, and share it with a few folks, and they'll lead you to your next perfect fit. For now,
just keep moving.
Yeah, and that's
obviously you've written a couple good books on the subject. There's, you had mentioned you worked with the author of What Color's Your Parachute, which is a book I used way 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So, when I was coming out of the Navy, I read that book pretty thoroughly during the year transition.
Yeah.
But, so it seems like there's a lot of books, a lot of resources. At what point should someone say, hey, I really need a career counselor to help me, get through this? is there a point where it comes where it's like, hey, look, you really need to bring in a career counselor to help guide you?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if you tried several things and you're getting blocked, and you're real frustrated because you won't be able to do anything if you're frustrated. But so whenever you feel like you're just at your wit's end, but before I get a career counselor, I would find a buddy and talk with them first, and but now, if you because sometimes people don't have a clue of what they want. I mean, really, truly, if you said, what do you like to do? They've been so frustrated so long and got really a bit depressed or burned out. That's when it's dangerous because you really don't think very clearly. And that's when I would see a career coach or career counselor, when you're, where you really can't think. And I have met several people here lately who are actually there. As you mentioned that, I thought about it, who were, they really couldn't, and I actually sent them to do some emotional counseling before they came and work with me. But whenever you just are so frustrated you can't think, and find a professional to see if they can help you, because you can. I do some psychological assessments and things with people who are at that point sometimes, who really need to look inside and see what their subconscious says is about who they are and what their interests and skills and gifts and values are. And that is helpful for some people when they really get at a low point. Or if I was with a company, I'd be taking all those things HR gives you, all the personality tests, all that, because self-awareness is actually the key to staying healthy in your career. So,
yeah, I find it funny. I've taken a couple of the the personality assessments, and
right.
It's scary how accurate. It's
scary. Yep,
how accurate they are.
Right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So,
yeah.
So your book is The White Shirt: Find Your Peaceful and Life-Giving Career at Any Stage.
Mm-hmm.
How do people find you? Your book is on your website and on Amazon. How do people find you if they want to reach out?
Well, my website is Michael Alan Tate, and Alan's ALAN Tate.com. And that's my website. My email and all the information's on that. The other for the book is whiteshirtbook.com. You can see there, and if you go to whiteshirtbook.com or my website and go to the White Shirt Book website, there's a free gift there for anybody that listens to the podcast. It's actually a workbook that you can use to start working on your next career plan, and you can download it there. There's a quiz there about what your career direction should be, and some tools there that are free for anybody who are listening to this podcast. They'll just refer to this podcast and you'll be able to download that book on whiteshirtbook.com. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on today. I look forward to when's your next book coming out?
Next book will be out end of January next year. And it's the second book in the White Shirt series. It's called Roll Up Your Sleeves. It's a leader's guide to change and transition. And so it's another parable. It'll be out then, and we'll let the viewers know about that. Maybe get back on your show and tell you about that book next time, Craig.
Look forward to it. Well, look forward to having you on again too as we go through this. So thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks so much. It's been an honor. Appreciate it, Craig.